Even classic rock bands that formally ended the day they lost their leader, not on hiatus, not exploring solo projects, formally ended. Statements issued, names retired, chapters closed. Some made it official within hours. Because when you lose the person the entire thing was built around, there's nothing left to call what remains. And the hardest thing about this list, not all of them were the front man. Number 10, Badfinger. Here's a name that should be in every conversation about early 70s rock and somehow never gets there. Badfinger. And when Pete Ham died on the morning of April 24th, 1975, so did the band. Badfinger started as the Ivies, 4 guys from Swansea, Wales, who became the first non-Beatles act signed to Apple Records. Paul McCartney wrote them a hit. He wrote Come and Get It specifically for them, produced the session himself, and handed them a career-launching single. You don't get a more direct endorsement than that. They used it. 4 worldwide hits by 1972. And Pete Ham and his bandmate Tom Evans had co-written a ballad called Without You. Harry Nilsson recorded it and took it to number 1. That song, You Know It. But here's what was happening underneath all of that. Their manager, Stan Pauly, controlled every dollar. Touring revenue, record advances, songwriting royalties, all of it flowing through accounts Ham couldn't access and couldn't trace. They had hits. They worked constantly, no matter what, day after day. Baby Blue, and Pete Ham, the man who co-wrote one of the most covered songs in music history, couldn't figure out why he was broke. Checks bounced. A Warner Brothers advance worth hundreds of thousands of dollars had simply vanished. Ham had just bought a house in Woking, Surrey. His girlfriend was expecting their first child, and the money wasn't there. Every day I feel the tears. On the night of April 23rd, word came from America that the accounts were empty. Ham spent the night drinking with Tom Evans. Evans drove him home in the early hours. That morning, Pete Ham died by suicide in his garage studio. He was 3 days from his 28th birthday. His note named Stan Pauly directly, the last line of it. Badfinger formally dissolved the following month when Warner Brothers terminated the contract. And Tom Evans, Ham's co-writer, his closest collaborator, carried the weight of that night for 8 more years. Tragedy struck again on November 19, 1983, when Badfinger bassist Tom Evans hanged himself, facing a bitter dispute over royalties from Without You, the song he had co-written with Pete Ham. That song has since been covered more than 180 times, fortunes earned for decades, just not by the men who wrote it. If you've ever watched someone pour everything into their craft and have the system take everything back, the Badfinger story is for you, and it's been waiting 50 years to be told properly. Number 9, T-Rex. Marc Bolan had 2 weeks until his 30th birthday when he died on September 16, 1977. He'd already invented glam rock, already written the riffs that ran through everything from David Bowie to the entire British punk movement. When the car he was riding in hit a steel post near Barnes Common in London, T-Rex ended with him that same night. No statement required. Because T-Rex was Marc Bolan. When he was gone, there was nothing left to call it. You have to understand what T-Rex meant in Britain in the early 70s. They called it T-Rextasy, mass hysteria, at a scale that genuinely hadn't been seen since Beatlemania. Bolan had transformed from an acoustic folk duo in the late 60s into the architect of an entire new genre. All riffs and mascara and platform boots and an effortless sense of cool, get it on, Telegram Sam, metal guru, 20th century boy. He made rock theatrical without making it silly. And that was genuinely difficult. By the mid-70s, the hits had slowed. Punk arrived and suddenly glam felt like yesterday's trend. Here's what most people don't know. Bolan was coming back. He'd launched a television show in Britain called Marc, just his name on the marquee, and it was working. He was sharp, funny, magnetic in a way that was reconnecting audiences who'd moved on. He brought a guest onto the show, his old friend David Bowie, his contemporary, the man who'd taken glam to places even Bolan hadn't imagined. That episode was scheduled to air September 28, 1977. Bolan died 12 days before it broadcast. He never saw it. His girlfriend was Gloria Jones. Yes, that Gloria Jones, the woman who wrote and originally recorded Tainted Love in 1964, a full 17 years before Soft Cell made it a household name, and she was driving that night. The car struck a steel-reinforced fence post near Barnes Common. Bolan was killed instantly. He'd been terrified of cars his whole life. He'd told people for years he believed he would die in one. T-Rex had no future without him. He was the entire vision, the sequence, the riffs, the persona, the belief system. When that was gone, there was nothing left to call a band. Some of you know the full Bolan catalog like a second language. If you know which chapter he deserves in rock history, drop it in the comments, because that chapter is long overdue. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, Joy Division. Joy Division was supposed to fly to America on May 19, 1980, their first American tour, the one they'd been building toward. The night before that flight, Ian Curtis died, and Joy Division formally ended, not because anyone decided it should, but because the 3 people left already understood it had. Manchester's post-punk scene in the late 70s was something specific, and Joy Division sat at its center. Curtis had a presence that was genuinely unsettling, controlled, intense, almost hypnotic on stage. His epilepsy was getting worse as the band's profile grew. Sometimes audiences couldn't tell if what they were watching was a performance or a medical crisis. That tension ran through everything. Unknown pleasures, She's Lost Control, Disorder. Songs that came from somewhere genuinely dark, because that's where they were written. And here's the part that still gets me. They were at a creative peak. In January 1980, they'd recorded Love Will Tear Us Apart. By April, they'd completed their second album, Closer. 2 months of extraordinary work. But Curtis was deteriorating personally. His marriage collapsing, a new relationship beginning, the medication prescribed for his epilepsy deepening his depression. He'd collapsed on stage in March. He'd attempted suicide in April, and the American tour was still scheduled. The night before the flight, May 18, 1980, Curtis was alone at his family home in Macclesfield. He watched a Werner Herzog film about a man overwhelmed by the weight of modern life. He put on an Iggy Pop record, and in the early hours of the morning, Ian Curtis died by suicide. He was 23 years old. The flight was canceled. The tour was canceled. Bernard Sumner, Peter Hook, and Stephen Morris didn't consider keeping the name. They brought in Gillian Gilbert and became New Order. Because the name Joy Division belonged to Curtis, they couldn't take it somewhere he'd never been. That's not grief management. That's a specific kind of loyalty you can't manufacture. Closer came out 2 months after he died. Love Will Tear Us Apart reached more people after he was gone than while he was here. Some of y'all have played that song on a day when nothing else fit. Number 7, Sublime. Bradley Nowell recorded the most successful album of Sublime's career. Every track, every hook, every vocal. He got married on May 18, 1996. 7 days later, he was found on the floor of a San Francisco motel room. The album came out 2 months after that. What I Got, Santeria, Wrong Way. Nowell never heard any of them on commercial radio. Not once. Sublime spent the late 80s and early 90s building a following in Long Beach, California, the hard way, selling cassettes out of the trunk of a car, playing every venue that would have them. A sound that mixed ska, reggae, punk, and hip-hop into something nobody had a name for yet. Nowell was the engine. The guitar playing, the voice, the ability to write hooks that felt completely effortless. He's the reason people who hated ska liked Sublime, and why people who loved reggae gave them a chance. He'd been fighting heroin addiction for years. That's not a secret. The songs themselves say it plainly. But in early 1996, MCA Records had a release date. The self-titled album was done. Everything built since those Long Beach parking lots was finally about to matter. On May 18, 1996, a week before his death, Nowell and Troy Dendecker married in a Hawaiian-themed ceremony in Las Vegas. Their son Jakob was 10 months old. 7 days later, on May 25th, drummer Bud Gaw awoke to find Nowell lying on the floor. Lou Dog, his Dalmatian, was curled up on the bed whimpering. Nowell had died of a heroin overdose. He was 28 years old. Sublime's self-titled album was released on July 30th, 1996. By 1997, it had entered Billboard's Top 20, with What I Got becoming the #1 song on the modern rock chart, followed by Santeria, Wrong Way, and Doin' Time. Rolling Stone later reported the album sold over 6 million copies. The man who recorded every note of it never heard any of it coming through a commercial speaker. The band's manager was quoted as saying, "Just like Nirvana, Sublime died when Brad died. Some of you have driven with What I Got on a summer afternoon and felt something you couldn't quite name. That feeling has a story underneath it. This is it." Number 6, The Doors. Jim Morrison died in Paris on July 3, 1971, and the 3 remaining members of The Doors spent 2 more years trying to convince themselves that wasn't the end. They recorded 2 full albums, they toured, they did everything musicians do when they're not ready to let go. And then in 1973, they disbanded. Because even after 2 years of trying, the only honest answer was the one they'd been circling. The Doors ended the morning Pamela Courson found Jim Morrison in that Paris bathtub.
Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby.
You already know what the Doors meant. That specific collision, Morrison's presence, Manzarek's keyboard runs carrying the bass line, Krieger's blues guitar, Dinsmore's jazz instincts underneath all of it, that wasn't a formula you could reproduce. Light My Fire, Riders on the Storm. When the music's over, every song felt like it was being broadcast from the edge of something. That's not an accident. That's what Morrison brought into every room he entered.
I would be alive if I was to say.
By 1971, it was fracturing. The Miami incident, Morrison charged with indecent exposure at a 1969 concert, the case still legally unresolved, had changed the atmosphere around the band. He was drinking more heavily than he was performing. And in March 1971, he left for Paris to write, to become the poet he'd always claimed to be, to step outside Jim Morrison, the rock star, and find out who was actually underneath. He was 27 when he got to Paris. He had his notebooks. By most accounts, those early months were calmer than the last year with the band. And then on July 3rd, 1971, Pamela found him. Heart failure, the certificate said. No autopsy. French law permitted that then. And Jim Morrison, with an active indictment still pending back home in the States, was buried at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris before most of the world even knew he was gone.
Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby.
Manzarek, Krieger, and Densmore made 2 albums without him. Real musicians trying to hold on to something real, and it still didn't work, because it was never just a band. And whether you think Morrison was a genuine poet or a performer who was extraordinarily good at appearing to be one, that conversation belongs in the comments. Either way, the music is real, and when he left, so did the Doors. Number 5, Soundgarden. Chris Cornell played a full Soundgarden concert in Detroit on May 17, 2017, 2.5 hours. The last song they performed that night was Black Hole Sun. In the early hours of May 18th, his bodyguard found him at the MGM Grand. Soundgarden issued a statement almost immediately. They were done. Soundgarden had something the grunge movement didn't always produce: genuine technical range. Cornell's voice was extraordinary, not just raw power, but control across 4 octaves, classical precision inside a sound that felt completely untamed. Super Unknown debuted at number 1 in 1994. Black Hole Sun won a Grammy. Spoonman fell on Black Days. Burden in My Hand, a catalog that grew more complex the longer you sat with it. They broke up in 1997. Internal tensions, the familiar story, and for 13 years, that was the ending. Then in 2010, they came back, not for a greatest hits tour, but a genuine return. A new album, King Animal, in 2012, active songwriting for a follow-up in 2017. The reunion wasn't nostalgia, it was the real thing. The Detroit show on May 17th was part of a full North American tour. People who were there described it as one of the best Soundgarden sets they'd ever seen. Cornell seemed energized, present, focused. After the show, he called his wife. Something in that call concerned her. She sent his bodyguard back to check on him, and what was found in that room ended everything. Kim Thayil, Ben Shepherd, and Matt Cameron released a statement. No discussions about a replacement. No conversation about finding another singer. Cornell's family later raised questions about whether prescription medication played a role in what happened that night.
Black hole sun, won't you?
And here's the detail that still stops me cold. May 18th, the date Chris Cornell died is the same calendar date Ian Curtis died in 1980. Two of the most specific, unrepeatable voices in rock music. Same date, 37 years apart.
As the face, lies the snake.
I'm not saying that means anything, but it stops you. The music they were making together in 2017, some of the best of their careers, by Thiel's own account, we'll never hear it. That part doesn't get easier.
Pray to keep heaven send.
Number 4. The Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia died at age 53 on August 9, 1995, at a rehabilitation facility in Forest Knolls, California. He was trying to get clean, and the statement from the remaining members came within days, clear and unequivocal. There would be no Grateful Dead without Jerry Garcia. For 30 years of music, 2 words closed it. Here's what made the Grateful Dead unlike anything else in rock. They weren't a singles band. You know this if you know them. They didn't need hit records. They had deadheads. A traveling community that followed the band from city to city, year to year, because no 2 shows were ever the same. Garcia could take a song he'd played 500 times and find something new inside it every single night. The improvisational range of that band in real time, the trust between those musicians, was a living thing, and it lived because of Garcia's guitar, Come Close Before. In 1986, he slipped into a diabetic coma that lasted several days. When he came out of it, his playing had to be relearned from scratch. Imagine that. One of the most distinctive guitar voices in rock history, starting over. He did it. He came back. But the heroin addiction never fully let go. The summer of 1995, the touring had become visibly grueling. The final show was July 9th at Soldier Field in Chicago. Garcia checked into rehabilitation in August, trying one more time to beat it, and on the morning of August 9th, he didn't wake up. Heart failure. Phil Lesh said it immediately. Bob Weir said it. The formal announcement from the surviving members was unambiguous. The Grateful Dead could not exist without Jerry Garcia. Not because the other musicians weren't extraordinary, because the Dead was the expression of Garcia's musical mind, and it ended with his. Dead and Company, Phil Lesh and Friends, they've played the songs to arena crowds for 30 years. None of them ever called themselves the Grateful Dead. That name stayed with Garcia. And if you've ever felt like a piece of yourself died with an artist you loved, not someone you knew, but someone whose music lived inside you like it was actually yours, you know something about August 9th, 1995. The Deadheads knew it the second the news broke. 3. Lynyrd Skynyrd.
If I stay with you, girl.
Street Survivors hit record stores on October 17, 1977. 3 days after the album's release, the band's chartered airplane crashed, killing Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, his sister Cassie Gaines, the assistant road manager, and both pilots.
If I leave here tomorrow.
The original cover showed the band standing in front of buildings engulfed in flames. It was pulled immediately. MCA Records withdrew the original cover and replaced it with a similar image of the band against a plain black background. Lynyrd Skynyrd formally dissolved, and the copy of Street Survivors you find today, with the flame art, existed in stores for exactly 72 hours.
Still remember me.
Lynyrd Skynyrd built the blueprint for Southern rock. Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama, Simple Man, songs that became identities, not just recordings. Van Zant was demanding, deeply committed to authenticity, capable of real emotional depth. And by 1977, Skynyrd was arguably playing better than they ever had. Steve Gaines had joined the year before, a guitarist whose talent stunned even the veterans in the band, and the chemistry had transformed. Street Survivors reflected it, tighter, more energized. They were 5 shows into their most successful headlining tour.
Lord knows
On October 20th, Lynyrd Skynyrd's chartered Convair CV-300 ran out of fuel near the end of their flight from Greenville, South Carolina to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The plane crashed in Mississippi, killing Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, backup singer Cassie Gaines, assistant road manager Dean Kilpatrick, pilot Walter McCreary, and co-pilot William Gray. Artemis Pyle, the drummer, survived the impact and crawled to a nearby farmhouse for help.
Traveling on now.
The surviving members put out a statement. They weren't going to try to continue, not without Van Zant, not without Gaines. What they'd had, that specific voice at the front, that chemistry, was in that Mississippi field. Lynyrd Skynyrd formally dissolved.
Still remember me.
They did reform in 1987 with Ronnie's younger brother Johnny on vocals. And that's a whole other conversation about what it means to honor something versus carry its name. But the original band, the one Van Zant built from Jacksonville, the one that had just made the best record of their career, ended October 20th, 1977, 3 days after they put it out. Some of y'all have that album. You know exactly which cover you're holding.
There's too many places I've got to see.
Number 2, Nirvana. Kurt Cobain's body was found on April 8, 1994. He'd been dead for 3 days. An electrician arriving to install security equipment found him. He was 27. And within hours of the news going public, Chris Novoselic confirmed it. Nirvana was over. No attempt at continuing. No conversation about a new singer. It ended the way it had always felt. Completely and without negotiation. Nevermind came out in September of 1991. You know what happened. Smells Like Teen Spirit wasn't just a hit, it was a reset. The album knocked Michael Jackson off the #1 position on the Billboard 200. Overnight, rock had a new center, and Cobain, who genuinely did not want to be there, was placed at that center anyway. That specific tension between the music he wanted to make and the phenomenon he'd accidentally become shaped everything that followed. He made In Utero in 1993 deliberately harder to love, more abrasive, less polished. The label hated it. He released it anyway, and then the MTV Unplugged in November of 1993. If you've watched that performance, you already know. It doesn't look like a band at their commercial peak. The set list was full of covers. Leadbelly, David Bowie, the Meat Puppets. Almost like Cobain was pointing away from Nirvana toward everything that had shaped him. The last song they played that night was Leadbelly's Where Did You Sleep Last Night? He sang it in a way that stopped the room. In retrospect, the whole performance reads like a farewell nobody was ready to see. In early 1994, everything was critical. In March, in Rome, he was found unresponsive. The official story was an accidental overdose. He entered rehabilitation at the end of March. He left before completing it, and on April 5th, at his home in Seattle, Kurt Cobain died. He left a note. Dave Grohl formed Foo Fighters. Novoselic moved on to advocacy. Neither continued as Nirvana, because Nirvana was Cobain's vision, his imagery, his contradictions, his specific and genuine discomfort with everything fame required. The music only worked because it came from a real place. Without that, it wasn't Nirvana. They said so. They were right. You probably have a very specific memory attached to at least one Nirvana song. Not, I like that song. An actual memory, a place, a version of yourself you don't visit very often. That's rare. That doesn't get engineered. Number 1, Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin's dissolution was announced on December 4, 1980, the surviving members stating that the loss of their dear friend, together with the deep sense of undivided harmony felt by themselves and their manager, had led them to decide that they could not continue as they were. The statement was signed simply, Led Zeppelin, and the person whose loss made the greatest rock band in history impossible to continue, not the guitarist, not the singer, the drummer. John Bonham was the engine, not a supporting player, not the timekeeper while the others created. The physics that everything else in Led Zeppelin operated within. Page's riffs were extraordinary. Plant's voice was irreplaceable. Jones's musicianship was architectural. And Bonham's drumming was the thing that made all of it possible to exist at the level it did. When the Levee Breaks, Whole Lotta Love, Kashmir, his sound on those recordings has never been duplicated because it was his specific physicality, his instinct, his particular way of hitting that created the space everything else lived in. You can hear him breathing between hits on the records. You can hear him deciding in real time. By September of 1980, the band was rehearsing at Bray Studios for a major North American tour, their first American dates in 3 years, scheduled to begin in mid-October. On September 24th, Bonham was picked up for rehearsals. He drank heavily throughout the day and into the night at Page's home in Windsor. At 1:45 p.m. the next day, tour manager Benji Lefevre and Jones found Bonham dead. The cause of death was asphyxiation. He was 32 years old. Despite rumors about several famous drummers who could potentially come on board, the surviving members decided it was not right to tamper with their legacy by bringing someone else in. They were offered extraordinary sums of money. Famous drummers, great drummers, drummers who would have given everything for the role. Every offer was declined, every single one, and the reason, every time, was the same. You cannot replace John Bonham, not because there aren't great drummers, because Led Zeppelin was those 4 people, and that was the whole point. December 4th, 1980, the statement went out, and they didn't hedge it, didn't say taking a break, didn't say exploring other directions, said they could not continue as they were. That's not grief management. That's accuracy. Four musicians honest enough about what they had and what it required to refuse to pretend their way around the truth. Plant once said hearing Bonham's drumming on the recordings now is almost unbearable because the playing is so alive.